Welcome to the Slow Living Podcast. If you are ready to ditch hustle culture for good while continuing to meet your personal and professional goals, you are in the right place. I'm your host, Stephanie O'Day, and I work with overachievers from all over the world who are ready to stop living life in triage mode and start living the life of their dreams, one filled with abundance, joy, and a sense of purpose. Life is meant to be enjoyed, not endured. Let's get started. Hi there, Slow Down Society. So if you're a fan of the podcast, you're going to absolutely love the book. Slow Living, Cultivating a Life of Purpose in a Hustle-Driven World is now available wherever books are sold. Buy it for yourself, your children, your friends, and your neighbors. You can get all the juicy details at stephanieoday.com/slow living book. Trust me, this is hands down the best $20 you'll ever spend. Hello, Slow Down Society. Steph here, and we are on episode 179 of the Slow Living Podcast. And today we are going to talk about jobs, careers, and identity, with the idea, and this is kind of the thesis of today's episode, that your job is not your identity. And so I want you to kind of pay attention to that. And whether or not you are identifying as your job or as your career and not as you, the human inside, kind of that soft, gooey caramel center and the hard exterior is a label, and it's what people label you as, and it's kind of a shortcut, like, oh, she's a teacher, or oh, she's a nurse. And so it's definitely a shortcut, but it's not you. It's not everything about you. And so it's just something to pay attention to, of whether or not you use that shorthand, and if you want to cultivate the rest of you, because as we all know, job loss happens, careers shift, and people change and grow and evolve. And who you used to identify as may change throughout the course of time. So I've written about this in not the Simple Shortcuts to Peace, that's the course, but the Slow Living book. So Slow Living, Cultivating a Life of Purpose in a Hustle-Driven World. I wrote about it, and so I'll read you a snippet. But what sort of made me want to hit record today was I got a very sweet email from a reader named Bonnie. And so I'll read you her email. And she says, Steph, I don't know where you come up with these brilliant ideas, but they are life-changing. Because of your insights, I've now been able to step into my new role. And then she puts in parentheses, I'm also getting paid 75% less and just do a good enough job. And I'm totally happy with it. And I'm getting it says, and I'm totally happy with getting a meets expectations now, meaning, and so I know what she means, but like on your performance review, it's just meets expectations, instead of many of us who are kind of overachievers, kind of people pleasers, kind of want the A++ or the extra credit on everything. Many of us kind of go above and beyond all of the time. And so we burn out. Okay, back to her email. I've read lots of books around the idea, but the concept of treating work like adult daycare blew my mind. It's the first concept that truly landed for me. I've been able to step away from a high-paying but extremely toxic boss to a, well, nothing exciting here, people, job that simply pays the bills. And then today, the B+/American Dream Reimagined podcast dropped. So that was 2 episodes ago. Truthfully, your podcast has so many nuggets of wisdom. I think another book could be Stephisms, which is very sweet. So thank you, Bonnie. One, I love hearing from people because it really makes me happy to know that there's actual real people out there listening. But 2, I'm just really happy that it landed and that it gave you permission to not hustle all the time, to not be the best of the best of the best, because you're worthy all of the time. Adam and I went on a Silicon Valley kind of outing the other day. We went to Filoli Gardens, and Filoli Gardens is kind of an estate with a large home on it and very kind of Downton Abbey-esque. And so the original homeowners got their fortune during the gold rush in the Empire Gold Mine, which happens to be in Grass Valley, which is in Northern California, which is a very cute gold rush town. And okay, totally off topic now. We went on a tour of the gold mine and Empire Mine, sort of, kind of. Adam and his brother took all the kids, and I happened to be pregnant at the time with baby number 3, and it was just the part of the pregnancy where I couldn't stop vomiting. So I opted to stay in the visitor center and sip on peppermint tea and vomit actually a little too grossly. And I'm sorry for sharing that. But that's what happened. So I have never been to the Empire Mine, but I just confirmed with Adam that it was a very fun tour. And I think he said that the kids got to go in one of the carts kind of down the mine shaft. And so they enjoyed that. So at some point, I would like to do that. That said, those people had a whole bunch of money and they built this estate. While we were touring the estate, there was the entire servants' quarters, which is very similar to Downton Abbey. And the idea that the people who are waiting on the people upstairs or are less than because they're in a life of servitude really irks me. And I think that's why I've always enjoyed also watching Below Deck, which is sort of like Downton Abbey or upstairs, downstairs on a yacht. There's the workers of the yacht, and then there's the people who have all the money and they charter the yacht. And I have always sort of identified with the workers. And I don't know, maybe somebody would psychoanalyze me and say that, well, gosh, Steph, then that must mean that maybe you don't think you're worthy of blah, blah, blah. And I don't think that. I actually truly believe we are all worthy of all wonderful things that life has to offer, regardless of what your profession is. And it's who you are in the deep down center, your ethics, your morals, when you go to bed at night, do you feel proud of yourself? That's, to me, the marker of a life well lived, not whether or not you have enough money to charter a yacht or a jet or anything like that. So, one, thank you again, Bonnie, for taking the time to write to me. I greatly appreciate it. So I'm going to read you a section from the Slow Living book. Let's see. Oh gosh, I need readers or something. I have to hold this away from me. So it happens to be on page 56, and I titled it "Separating Your Job from Your Identity." Okay, and so the idea is that many of us were sort of raised with the idea that you have to figure out what your passion is, and then major in that and find a job from that way. And I don't particularly agree that you have to find a way to monetize your passion. My biggest passion right now happens to be taking Epsom salt baths and reading trashy novels. And then I've got a few different puzzles going at all times. I like weeding the backyard. I like yoga. I have lots of different hobbies and passions. But when you start trying really hard to monetize that, it turns into work. It turns into a job. And so pay attention to that. Okay. So I start with, again, I don't want you to worry about monetizing your passion. You can separate who you are as a human from what you do to make a living. You are not your profession. Many people use someone's job or profession as a shortcut to size them up and to decide how much respect they should bestow upon them. It's rather gross. Humans are all worthy of love, acceptance, and appreciation, regardless of what they choose to do or not do to make money. My high school drama teacher gave us an exercise to practice our improvisation skills. She handed a deck of cards to 2 people and asked them to take the stage. One student held the deck with a card pointing out against his or her forehead. The other student then began the scene talking as if the person on the exposed card, for instance, a two of spades, was treated differently than the king of hearts, who was instantly revered and put on a pedestal. I've personally witnessed and experienced this phenomenon multiple times in my adult life, and each time it happens, it shakes me. But as the years pass, each circumstance rattles me less and less. I first experienced it when I was about 24 years old at the grand opening of a childcare center built for homeless families. A reporter from the local newspaper who was there to cover the opening refused to make eye contact or speak with me until the main director of the large nonprofit agency confirmed that, yes, I was who was in charge and I was the right person to interview. At the time, I chalked that experience up to ageism and moved on. Fast forward 8 to 10 years, and I was at a writing conference for food bloggers. My No Money Down blog had just been named the #3 food blog in the US, and I was arriving to give a talk about monetizing your website. I worried beforehand about attending the conference because I don't consider myself a foodie. I just happen to be a food writer. That said, I was given a free pass to the conference and hotel accommodations because I was asked to be a speaker. When I walked into the crowded ballroom for the pre-conference mixer wearing my name tag proudly, many of the writers I tried to engage in conversation made cordial small talk while looking over my head, which is not hard since I'm only 5 feet, so they could network with someone, and then I put in quotes, better. It wasn't until after I took the stage and the writers in the audience realized I was, again, quotes, somebody, that they came up and played friendly and nice. This feeling of not being good enough or feeling unworthy in group settings continued to come up throughout the years. I never knew how to answer the question, what do you do? Sometimes I answered I was a stay-at-home mom, sometimes a writer, and sometimes I said that I ran my own online business. All of the answers were correct and accurate, but I was treated differently depending on the answer. In certain circles, if I answered I was a stay-at-home mom, I was dismissed. That feeling of being dismissed is awful, but it's just a feeling, not a reality. Okay. So again, think about that. When you're at a restaurant, my hope is that you are cordial and polite to absolutely everyone. And if your own child was a server in a restaurant, my hope is that you would expect the patrons to be respectful to your child. And when you look at it, everyone in life is someone's baby. They all used to be someone's baby, someone's precious bundle of joy, and they are worthy of respect. When it comes to identity and how to make small talk, and then I'm not saying that you should never ask someone what they do for a living. It's fun to make small talk about that. But what I wouldn't want you to do is think that someone is better than you because perhaps they went to school longer, or perhaps you think because of their profession they're making more money than you, then they are quote unquote better than you. No one is better than you. No one, not anyone. And I want you to really think about that. And if what I just said didn't feel true to you, listen to it again. No one is better than you. You are perfect. You are wonderful. You are amazing. And you are cherished just how you are right now. Right now. Sure. Maybe you're listening and you're in the middle of taking a class or a course or finishing your degree. That's great. But having that piece of paper is not what makes you worthier than anyone else. Nope, nope, nope. Some people are better at other things. I would want a surgeon to have taken the proper courses. But if I'm going to make small talk on the soccer field with a surgeon, I'm going to talk about where are you going to go for spring break and those type of things. I'm going to talk to that person the exact same way. And my hope is you do too. And if you don't, my hope is that this is a bit of a wake-up call that perhaps maybe you do need to pay attention to that in some way. And it's not in a shameful way. Um, Many of us were sort of raised in households where, regardless of whether or not our culture um, sort of perpetuated the caste system, it just kind of happened. And so, if you have that sort of bias within you or within your extended family, and you're realizing it now, that's wonderful. That is fantastic because now, once you know, you can do better. And then you can hopefully help teach the next generation um, to not act that way. Okay. So in Bonnie's email to me, she talked about treating your job as adult daycare. And I don't know exactly where I put that in the book. And I'm sure I've mentioned it on the podcast before. But it's the idea that when you know where you're going, you've got your GPS firmly set and you're working towards your own particular like success goals or what you deem your success goals. You've got a goal for health, for time management, for finances, for home improvement or organization or whatever it is that you're working on. Your job is just the place you go to make the money for whatever your finance goal is. And so I've talked in the past that I really like following the people who write and speak about the FIRE movement, which is financial independence, retire early. And my favorite book along those lines is The Simple Path to Wealth by J.L. Collins. And the preface for that is written by Mr. Money Mustache. And Mr. Money Mustache is a blogger, and he's got message boards and lots of like frugality, like tips and tricks and ways to save money and invest better. So your money's in the bank making baby money for you. But with the idea that retirement isn't an age, it's a math equation. It's figuring out your money. And so going to your job, whatever it is, to make the money, to put in the bank, to then make baby money is the purpose of it. It's not to define you, and it's not to give you your identity. If you don't know who you are without your job, do some work on that. Read the book. Slow down, simply look only within and start asking yourself some really, really good questions about it. And then you might realize that one, like Bonnie, you're working too hard and it's not worth it. And you're burning yourself out and it's time to make a change. And maybe you can kind of half-ass some things and not kind of go overboard and not be 110% at all times. Another thing to really point out about your job and your career is that, unfortunately, the people you work with, they're your colleagues, they're your coworkers. They're not necessarily your friends. Sure, sometimes maybe if you're lucky, someone will cross over into your real life and you'll actually be a really close, good friend. But that's the exception, not the norm. The norm is most humans, unfortunately, are out for themselves. So pay attention. And maybe you got to keep your guard up a little bit at work. And maybe you don't let these coworkers actually get down to your gooey, soft nougat center. And you kind of leave a little bit of your hard candy shell up. And that's okay. You're still being authentic. You're still being you. I had recorded an episode, I don't know the number off the top of my head, about masking and how it's okay at times. Because again, you've got to do you. And another thing, this is going to sound callous, but if you get hit by a bus tomorrow, people at work will be upset and they will be sad, but they will move on and they will replace you. There will be a help wanted ad on Indeed.com very, very soon. You are just a cog in the production line. And that's just the facts. Your family, your close friends, the people who truly know all of you, warts and all, those are your people. And those are the people that are important to pay attention to. You're just going to your job. It's just adult daycare. They're just your coworkers. They're just your colleagues, but you do you. And that really, at the end of the day, is what matters. Okay. Again, if you've got any questions about that, let me know. Write to me. I'm going to drop a few past podcast episodes. I like doing this. I think it's helpful and useful, and I get lots of feedback from my newsletter subscribers that they too like having those past episodes to kind of go back and re-listen to with fresh ears. And when you listen to them, someone wrote to me, and it's like, I keep pausing and writing down little nuggets of wisdom and rewinding and going back. So you're not going to get graded on any of this. This is your life. If that makes you feel good, do it. If that helps you with journaling and prompting. But one, I know I've been doing this now for a few years. I repeat myself constantly. So if you are tuning me out here and there because you're writing your grocery list in your head, that's okay. It's totally okay. And don't feel like you're missing out or anything. So please forgive yourself in that way. Everything's written out in the book anyway. So read the book. My publisher would ask for you to read the book. Okay. Episode 9, getting what you want when you want it. That really sort of lays out all of the foundation of the 5 steps to slow living and the steps of the peace pyramid. And just, you have to have your GPS pointed. You have to be working towards something. That's what will give you a sense of purpose and a sense of identity. 32, dealing with disappointment. Again, when we're talking about like a job loss or a career shift, an injury, something that means you no longer can do what you thought. This happens a lot with athletes. All of a sudden their knee goes out and they can't play their sport again, and they've lost all sense of who they are and identity. I want you to have more parts of you, more aspects of you that have been cultivated, not just one thing. I don't want you to be a lopsided stool. I want you to be a very strong, stable pyramid. That was episode 32. 53, the bare minimum. Yes, again, you do not have to always go overboard. Sometimes you do, but sometimes you don't. When you know you don't have to, figure out what the bare minimum is. Figure out what you can get away with, the good enough for government work. 49, quiet quitting. Oh, I did 53 before 49. Okay, whatever. 49, quiet quitting. Quiet quitting was in the news for quite a while. And so I recorded my thoughts on it. Really, the idea is just, again, you don't have to really go overboard in order to still collect a paycheck. Right now, and especially in the tech industry, there's a lot of layoffs happening. And so people are happy that they, depending on what company they worked with, some who were already quiet quitting were laid off, and some who were quiet quitting were not laid off. So it just kind of is what it is sometimes with some of these companies. So obviously do what's right for you. But it's that idea that it's not all or nothing. Okay. And then the last one, episode 16 was one of the very first early ones I did. And it was talking about matching your identity with integrity and doing the right thing, even when no one is watching, and have that be the marker of who you are and your identity, your ethics, your morals, your thoughts, your actions, not necessarily your profession or your job, because that's just adult daycare. That's just what grownups go do every day. You wake up, you get dressed, you make yourself lunch, and you get out the door and you go do your adult daycare, and then you come back, and that's the life. Your life is what happens outside of work. Okay, pretty people. As always, I think you're amazing and wonderful and lovely. If you've got any questions on this, hit me up. You can tag me on Instagram. I'm at Stephanie O'Day. If you, it'd be fun. Send me a screenshot of what you're listening to, and we'll repurpose it on socials. Okay, give yourself a hug. I'll talk to you again next week. If you are ready to start living slowly and ditch the hustle mindset for good, reach out to me. I'm a real person, and you can track me down online at stephanieoday.com. Also, if you found value in this podcast, please share it with your family and friends and tag me on Instagram at Stephanie O'Day. While you're at it, go ahead and leave a positive review on your favorite podcast app. The more we share, the more people we can reach and share the slow down lifestyle and messaging. Thank you, Slow Down Society, and have a great day.